Right, well, it looks like the players are ready to battle, so let's go ahead and dive into the match. This is going to be match number 1, Doomwake against Arya of MTGO Masters Season 2 Modern Horizons. Let's get into it. Talk to me about the opening hands here. What do we see?
Yeah, so we see Arya on the play here with 5 lands, but there's an Arboreal Grazer and a Nadu, so I'm interested to see if that is a keep. On the other side, we have Doomwake here with a bit better of a land spell ratio. We see the flexibility of the Boggart Trawler immediately. It's a black source when you need it. It can interact with graveyards when you need it. And yes, a powerful opening here with Grief getting to take the Nadu before Arya can play it, which is huge.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I think makes the Necrodominance deck very powerful. It's just, I mean, in every format we're seeing Grief played, it's actually doing a lot, right? I think recently even won like a vintage challenge, didn't it, with Psychic Frog? But in Legacy,
Sure
it's yeah. Grief. I mean, being able to play it on turn 0 means you get to take the most proactive, most powerful card in the hand here. That's going to be Nadu. That's going to leave Arya with not too much left here. And I guess we're down to top decking already, just based on this keep. Shifting Woodland, though, that one looks pretty interesting in the hand.
Definitely. I'm excited to see. I've never actually seen that card, activated, but it requires Delirium, and it's just like if you're playing a lot of forests, it's kind of a free roll to play that card. So that could be pretty cool for a longer game. But you're definitely right that this is pretty quick that we get into top deck mode. This is like old school modern, with Liliana, Thoughtseize, Inquisition, stuff like that. We get into top deck mode, but this is as early as turn 1, simply because Arya's hand didn't have much aside from the Nadu and a lot of lands.
Yeah, it looks like Sorin here is going to be the top deck for Doomwake. Now, Sorin is a very interesting planeswalker. I wonder if we can pull it up on the screen here. I want to talk to you. I want to ask your question actually is how does Sorin actually work in this deck? What are other Sorin shells that you've seen in Modern since the printing of the card that it's shined in? Any thoughts on that card?
Yeah, so that card is kind of hard to evaluate because the Extort is an old ability from, I believe, what was the name of that block? I remember it in Gatecrash at least. And
I think Gatecrash sounds right. Yeah.
yeah, so all of a sudden you get when life total matters, that card can kind of help you out a little bit. The life link on the card is good. The 4 toughness is good. So it's especially good in aggressive matchups where life total matters. And this deck has a lot of incidental life gain. So once you flip it, you have some good abilities. Like the Soul Spike interacts favorably with it. So all of a sudden the minus ability on that card is quite strong.
All right. Well, back to the match here. Looks like Grief was actually not cast on turn 1, which is a very interesting decision. Instead, we're playing it on turn 2 here, exiling the Boggart Trawler, which is kind of cool, right? This is one of the things that you get to do when your lands are also spells that have a color identity associated with them. And then we're using the Grief to sacrifice to the Phyrexian Tower, generates 2 mana, lets you play that Orcish Bowmasters. And honestly, that's just a really, really powerful play. Disrupt your hand, and we get to play our one of our most disruptive threats in Orcish Bowmasters this turn. And next turn, we have access to the One Ring and Shieldred, thanks to the 2 creatures that are in play. This is an incredible start from the Mono Black deck.
Oh, definitely. Phyrexian Tower really showing why it was such a good reprint into Modern, or just print into Modern. Like you can sacrifice the creature that's going to die anyway. Now you can sacrifice a more or less meaningless token to ramp out a big draw engine. Super strong here.
You know what's really crazy too is, and I believe that, okay, I'll address it. There was maybe a misclick here. The Arboreal Grazer didn't actually put a land into play on turn 1. Despite that, we have access to 2 copies of Shifting Woodland, which means we could actually copy the Nadu, and then next turn when we could search up for Shuko off of Urza Saga and threaten to win the game next turn. So this is like both decks are putting out a lot of pressure, a lot of powerful plays here. And I can't really tell you in this situation who's going to win. I mean, Doomwake's got a great setup, but there's a lot of potential to kill here from the Nadu side.
There is something to think about here when it comes to Delirium on the Shifting Woodland, because when Saga goes to the graveyard, that will make it enchantment, land, and creature from Nadu. So we need an additional card type in the yard for Shifting Woodland to accomplish what you talked about.
Okay, got you. Now, what's really interesting too, also, is that we have multiple copies of Shifting Woodland, and Shifting Woodland doesn't like exile as a cost or anything like that. So, when we get to the point where we can copy the Nadu, I guess if the first one dies, we actually have another one ready to go as well. So this hand, which had, 2 spells and 5 lands, actually is way more resilient than it originally seemed.
Definitely. The power of spell lands, I always call them, like whether we play Legacy and it's like Wasteland, or we play Modern, it's Creature Land, so anything along those lines. Lands are very, very good these days, and yeah, as you say, it just might be enough here.
Okay, let's see what's going on. We do need one more type in the graveyard.
Sheldred hits the battlefield here, doing a little bit of comboing with the One Ring. Definitely not. Life total is not going to be Doomwake's problem here.
All right, going to the upkeep, we're going to make a construct token here, and likely we're going to be tutoring for Shuko. I guess Drannith Magistrate is a really interesting card that we see in play here. What is making this bug deck actually turn into a 4-color deck? What is your thought on Drannith Magistrate in this meta? Do you think it's? I mean, it's we've seen it all in the Pro Tour. Do you think it's a card that's worth main decking in this format now?
I would say that's where the stipulation comes in. You're playing a small pod. You don't get assigned Ral, so somebody else must have done that, right? And then which decks can you play with Ral? And the answer is most likely Ruby Storm. So there's something to be said about main decking a Silver Bullet like that. It's just a smart move, I think.
Okay. Yeah, especially when you have cards like, I think there's Court of Calling in this deck too, so you can just tutor it up if you actually really need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes it pretty accessible here. So, looking at Doomwake's hand, Devin has drawn a billion cards, quite literally, and with Shieldred in play has gained twice that much life. Now it looks like we're doing exactly what you talked about during our deck tech, which is converting all of these cards into 1-for-1 exchanges. And since he's drawing multiple cards a turn, seems like this is a very profitable interaction for him.
Definitely. This is what the black deck wants to do. But now Doomwake just saw that, okay, he's not up against any spells on the other side of the table. So the power of grief is kind of mitigated here, especially because Arya is just going to play whatever she draws off the top. And so discard spells are kind of off the table here, I would say. Doomwake will be looking to get his hands on as many soul spikes as possible here with the Necrodominance on the end step. But let's see how deep he goes.
Oh, take a look at this. Are we casting March of Wretched Sorrow here?
It sure looks like it.
Okay, very interesting. And I guess this makes sense, right? The reason we're doing this is because we're going to draw a lot of cards here off of the Necrodominance, and we want to empty our hand here a little bit, see what, make sure that we can, I guess Necrodominance does reduce your maximum hand size down to 5, so we don't want cards left over at the very end of everything. Right. That's interesting. What do you think about this? Or do you think it's just so he could literally attack? I don't know. Why'd you main phase that?
Yeah, so you want to do this because you want to reduce Arya's life total as much as possible and try and finish the game off with soul spikes. Also, Doomwake has full information from the grief, so he knows that now Delirium is getting closer and the combo kill from Arya is getting closer. So yeah, he's just in a hurry basically, and he doesn't care about cards. Like, he has so many available.
I'm sorry. What? This is a lot of triggers that are coming here on the stack, and this is because it looks like Doomwake paid 34 life. Okay. All right.
So this is kind of cool, where the wording on Necrodominance is actually draw, where the old Necropotence, which it's a tribute card to, says like put into hand. So this card is actually stopped by Bowmasters, but it's also combos with your own Shieldred because of that reason. So let's see how many soul spikes. Oh, it looks like Doomwake got here with a couple of soul spikes to finish the job.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually so insane. I think, well, okay, it's insane both ways, right? Because the opening hand here didn't really look that great for Arya, but her hand still like actually posed a threat at some point. But then we saw the power of there's all these draw cards out of the Golgari, sorry, not Golgari, the mono black Necro deck, and it just once it did its thing, wasn't even close, right? Soul Spike is actually just a really good win condition here. Does a lot of the things that you're looking to do here. Talk to me about sideboarding, though.
Yeah, so let's see. It looks like Doomwake is deciding to bring in some more removal spells, a couple of a Fatal Push, a Flare of Malice, and a Force of Despair. Again, like free pitch spells, works like a charm with Necro. While I'm more worried about how much Arya can actually change her deck to keep the combo pieces intact. It's the ever old situation. We know it from all formats, and Modern is no different. If you tinker around too much with the combo deck in sideboarding, you just lose a lot of consistency, and that is your best weapon after all. So not a lot of changes, I would guess.
Okay. Interesting. And then I'm gonna poll you for another question. Is going into our first post board game, who do you think is actually a favorite to win? Game number 2.
Yeah, great question. My best bet would be the Nadu deck. I think if you get a bit better land spell ratio, you can kind of, and you play, like, you have powerful stuff to do from the top of your deck, which has historically been great against discard spells. So I think if we have a tad better start on Arya's side, we can get to see a game 3.
Okay, yeah. This is an interesting card that we've seen crop up in the Nadu deck. At this point, it's pretty stock here. Springheart Nantuko. This one's really interesting. And I've seen it do some really, really, really powerful things. What is your thought on a card like this, what it brings to Modern? And I guess one other thing that I'm going to talk to you about, actually, more importantly, because we see it in the hand here, the Chthonian Nightmare. What do you think about the card Grist, the Planeswalker? Because of all the Planeswalkers that we've seen so far, I feel Grist is actually maybe the most underrepresented.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Grist is a card that will shine if the format is very attrition based. So Fatal Push this, Thoughtseize that. So could come into play here and be powerful against the mono black deck. If the format is more combo heavy, it's not really this type of card that's worth the investment.
Okay.
But to answer the Nantuko point, Nantuko is basically, it's a card that kind of ensures the fail rate of the Nadu deck is as small as possible. The card is not very strong on its own, but it just ensures that you don't fizzle once you start going off. So I've seen lists with 2 where you kind of want to have a higher card quality overall, and I've seen lists with 4 which really puts emphasis on actually winning once you're starting to go off.
Yeah, it's kind of really interesting, right? I mean, Nadu is a card that most people will expect to not have a long lifespan in the format of Modern, given its incredible results at the Pro Tour. But we've seen different shades of Nadu, right? Between the all-in combo versions and then maybe, versions that are a little bit slower but more resilient, more value-based. Is there a specific one a build that you like?
Yeah, so at the PT, I actually played against both Bant and I played against 4-color. And the 4-color one had like Bowmasters, Thoughtseize, Fatal Pushes out of the sideboard. And in general, I like to hedge a little bit when I play combo decks. So the more versatile I can get, the better. I'm actually not sure which one is actually better. So it's just a personal preference that, I like that warm, fuzzy feeling of not folding to hate as much.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, me too. Whenever I can play a Jund deck in whatever colors I play, like Azorius Jund, I try to do it. I feel you on that. And speaking of Jund, it looks like we've got our value creature in play here. Grist is equipped with the Shuko, but on the other side, Grief discarding the One Ring and then sacking to Phyrexian Tower, and that is a turn 2 Necrodominance with Soul Spike already in hand. This is disgusting.
Yeah, it's really brutal here. So turn 1 Inquisition, turn 2 Grief, Necrodominance is incredibly powerful. Doomwake's really not messing around today.
Yeah, and this is also really interesting too, because I know there's been a lot of clamor about the power of a card like Grief in our Eternal formats. Do you think Grief is more balanced in Modern? Do you think it's okay to stick around? Because what I'm looking on the screen right now should not be okay. I'll be real with you.
Yeah, so it's so for me, I'm okay with Grief in any format. So maybe not. I'm maybe not the right to ask.
Okay,
but
okay.
I would say that you can make an argument here that Necrodominance is the powerful stuff that enabled this, or Phyrexian Tower is the powerful card that enabled this. I think that's up for debate what enabled this incredible start.
Got you. Well, check this out. This is a new card, right? Malevolent Rumble lets you look at the top 4 cards, pick one, but also it makes an Eldrazi Scion, which means that it's functionally 1 mana, which I think is pretty cool here. Looks like it's going to pick up a copy of Nadu. So next turn, Arya is poised to win. And also, how far are we away from Delirium?
Good question here. So I see a One Ring and an Ursa Saga and a land. That's already 3, and then we have instant. And we have five or six types out there already. So Delirium is definitely on here.
Wait a minute. Oh my god, that's so cool. I haven't seen this card in literal forever, but is that Force of Despair?
Yes, it's the Black Force. I actually played it briefly in Legacy when Goblins was all the rage. So you can just sit back, let them go for it, and then just Force of Despair at the end of the rainbow. So I've actually seen it recently.
I like at the end of the rainbow. Yeah, it's funny because I was there at the end of the rainbow with my Muxus and my Ringleader and my Hasty Creatures all destroyed. It was not a happy feeling. I'm gonna tell you that much. Okay, so clearly, Doomwake does seem to be in the driver's seat here. I mean, 10 life is all you have left. Your life total is actually kind of, precarious here since you don't have something like Shieldred in play to gain that life back. I guess you have like Soul Spike. I guess you have, March of Wretched Sorrow. But what position is Arya in right now? Is it possible for her to even win this game?
Yeah, so let's see what Doomwake finds here, because that has a lot to do with my answer to that question. So Doomwake has a Soul Spike and a Fatal Push and a Black Flare available, with even a Bowmaster. So Doomwake can just take care of everything that's on the board.
Okay.
I wonder why Doomwake didn't. Maybe he liked all of his cards and he didn't want to grief away before necroing.
Okay.
I'm
That's
actually
possible.
not sure.
Or maybe he just saw the hand last turn with the grief and says, "Oh, you don't have anything, and I've got Nadu covered, which I know you have." I guess you know the hand, right? So he wants to spend mana on this stuff. But you're right, grief also costs 0 mana, so it goes both ways, right?
But maybe he really wanted the pitch cards he had available at the time.
Mhm.
There's also the point that Doomwake has a Black Force in hand, which means if Arya goes Nadu and then tries to equip for the first time, Doomwake can cast Force of Despair in response, so it's only one trigger from Nadu, and maybe that's acceptable.
Oh, that's such a cool card. I
Oh
like
yeah,
Sylvan Safekeeper. I think
yeah,
that
the
card is really
Safekeeper.
cool. Yeah.
It's quite awesome. I love when these historic cards make a comeback almost 30 years after the print.
Okay.
So here we
So
actually see the flare. Yeah, that's the same point. One equip onto the Nadu, so that's only one trigger, and then
whoa.
Doomwake can kind of take care of it.
Wait a minute. This is actually really cool because now Arya drew Chthonian Nightmare, which is another way to recur the Nadu, which means, okay, I thought that getting discarded, what is this like the fourth, fifth time, in this match, whatever, but there's so much resilience between the Shifting Woodlands, between the
Yeah,
Nightmares. I'm
but
actually, oh, okay,
but
well,
but now we see the stuff we talked about in a pregame with the
fourth, back,
versatility of these
fourth.
lands.
Nice. I like it. That's so cool.
Sometimes it's a land, sometimes it's a Tormod's Crypt, and that can be very timely as well, especially when we play with open deck lists. So you know
Hmm.
that the Nightmare is actually a reasonable counterplay against the attrition strategy. So yeah, pretty heads up play here by Doomwake, but we have to think about Doomwake's life total a little bit here.
Yeah. Now, I will mention one thing, right? We're looking at how amazing this Necrodominance deck is, and if Doomwake does win this match 2-0, something to think about here is what he's going to be playing with throughout the rest of the night. Because the way these themes work, I specifically asked everyone to bring 2 decks because once you play one, you can't play it again until the very, very, very end, your actual winning in match number 5. So, this is kind of Arya maybe saying, "Hey, I'm going to use this Nadu deck, but I'm going to, hold," because she's also brought a Necrodominance deck, I believe, and maybe she wants to use that for later on,
Yep.
taking down someone else. It's kind of very interesting, right, with the metagaming thing, because everybody knows all the decks that exist, but you don't know who's going to step forward with what foot, right? So I like it. I like that this is a little twist that's been added
Yeah,
that
me too. I love the mind
stirs the
games.
pot.
I'm
Yeah,
already thinking a little bit about what I should bring for the next match, so I definitely feel you on that one.
yeah, yeah. All right. The Boggart Trawler was actually really, really cool here. I think that's another thing that I've noticed as well is these decks that really get to, I mean, okay, just like the MDFC cards in general, like being able to use your lands as spells has always been something that I have found very, very powerful. And I think when this whole set was released, these are the cards that I first looked at and was like, they're kind of underrated.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, but also you can just see that uh, there was just a lot of upgrades. Especially, I play a lot of vintage, so the white
Hmm.
one is an obvious upgrade for Modern White Initiative. The blue
Hmm.
one, the bounce spell, is an obvious upgrade for a coveted jewel in vintage. So I actually saw it quite soon that those would be relevant as well. But I didn't pay enough attention to the black ones, I guess, because they're very good in this deck. To say
See,
the
I
least.
love it. I love that you're talking to me about Magic through the lens of other formats because that's stuff I hadn't even considered. And then the other day I saw like Oops All Spells and Legacy, which has now so many more untapped black
Yep,
sources in the form of these.
that's also a
It's
great
it's
point.
Magic is so sweet. speaking of so sweet, we do see Soren in play finally, and I want to see what this Soren can potentially do in this interesting archetype. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, one thing that I like with the stipulations, it's kind of like these themes, right? It's tricky because I don't want someone to take a great deck and just like replace 4 cards, but sometimes that's just what happens, and maybe this is the best home for Soren, just like due to the sheer strength of Necrodominance. I'm very curious to see what the Soren will be able to do, if it's going to be able to flip and just end the game on the spot, right? Because there are some infinite combos in Modern that exist with Soren. I don't know if they're necessarily in this deck.
No, so for this particular game, Doomwake, also worth noting is Doomwake is staying on 2 life here because he knows from open deck lists that Arya has a single copy of Orcish Bowmasters in there. So staying at 2 life is important. And Doomwake hopes that he can kind of use that Soren to extort a little bit. But yeah, his draw set is locked as we speak. So Doomwake needs to, get the job done or gain enough life to go deeper in his library.
Oh, this would have been so. I think Chthonian Nightmare can bring back a Dryad Arbor, right? That is something that is allowed to be done.
Yep.
Okay, it would have been really interesting if we block the creature with the Dryad Arbor and then have it in our graveyard to maybe like do some nightmare shenanigans with, just in case we draw like another copy of Orcish Bowmasters, and maybe the One Ring changes all of that. Okay.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because Dryad Arbor is a 0 mana value creature, so bringing it back is also very, let's call it, energy friendly with the Nightmare. So yeah, definitely some new interactions here for sure. I would lie if I said I was an expert on what's going on in this game, like this board state, but the fact that
your top deck. What? Okay, all right, that was pretty cool, right? There's the one here
Well,
from both sides. Yeah,
you can always, if cool stuff is happening, just go ahead and interrupt whatever you're doing. Like that's just great.
Now, what I want to see happen is, or what I want to figure out now is how Doomwake is going to basically balance the life gain problem with the life loss problem, because like you mentioned, he's at 2 life. The One Ring gonna put him down to 1. If there is Orcish Bowmasters, it is now lethal, and it looks like he's just going all. There it is, another one. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that works, right? Chaining the One Rings, you know a little bit about that as well from other formats.
Powerful play, very powerful.
And the cool thing is here, it gets rid of the old one, and the shield makes it so that Doomwake doesn't die to combat damage. But then next turn, the top card of okay, he's drawing the card already. Let's see, why would he do that? Because he can play an instant. Okay, he can play an instant before dying to the One Rings -1 life, I guess. Also,
an extort.
Exactly, and also the Soren is lifelink, so.
Oh yeah, you're right. It does.
He's staying afloat for now. Let's put it that way.
Oh my goodness! All right. This is clutch. This is close.
Yeah, this is what you want to see.
It's funny because there's a Malevolent Rumble. Okay, that could be actually really strong.
Nadu is a permanent card last time I checked, so 4 looks at
checking notes. If you want to be a 3-time champion, by the way, this is how you do it. Check the notes. All right. Oh, and there's a Nadu. Okay.
I see the bird we all have come to love.
And wait,
here's
now
another 1/1, and now you will get to see the Nantuko at work. But maybe the Force of Despair has something to say about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because we're going to make this play off the assumption that with Sylvan Safekeeper, our board is totally fine.
Yeah.
The problem here is it's actually. Oh wait, no. Do we actually win through this?
I can guarantee you stuff is going to happen in response here, because we can activate from Arya start at the table. We can activate Sylvan Safekeeper and start triggering Nadu here. Doomwake does like the scripted play of whenever he gets priority, he'll fire off the Force of Despair to kind of not lose. Okay, it actually looks like Arya didn't really want to sacrifice all her lands to start digging. That's reasonable.
But this is crazy because with the Nightmare already in play, we don't even have to spend mana. We can just sack like a Dryad Arbor and bring back the Nadu, right? Use the 3 energy that we got.
Okay, you nailed it.
Holy moly, that was actually nuts. That was turn 1 Inquisition, turn 2 Grief, another Grief along the road. Doomwake also drew like 100 billion cards.
Yeah.
Are you still winning?
As a reminder for everyone, this is the game where we basically wrote it off turn 2 after the Inquisition into Grief Necro turn 2. And here we are, 6 turns later.
This is ridiculous. Now, what about the fail rate? Because you did mention that the literal intent of Nantuko was to sort of mitigate the fail rate, and I have to imagine at this point it's just not
Yeah, so
possible,
now
right?
I would say it's almost impossible because you can equip onto each creature 2 times, and every land you hit from the top of the deck puts a land into play, which creates a new 1/1.
Ah,
If that's a fetch land, it's 2 1/1s.
yeah.
It's even 3 because you can go and fetch out Dryad Arbor from your deck, depending on, okay, maybe it was already drawn this game. But so that card is basically just saying, I'm not gonna fizzle once, I kind of go for it.
What happened in that game? Why was Devin in such a different position? Because I think the first game we saw was totally
Yep.
dominating from his side right now. And game two, like it was very, very actually close, which is not something because I have this mentality where you play Necrodominance, GG, it's over. That wasn't the case here.
Yeah, so you can actually compare it reasonably to, let's say, resolving a card like Ad Nauseam in Legacy. You need a special combination of cards to actually
Huh.
put your opponent away. If you draw too much more, like One Rings, more Necros, more stuff that doesn't gain you life, you're just going to run out of life, right?
Okay.
So it looks like just a simple Soul Spike would have kept Doomwake going there, simply just getting something off the table, buying back some life, drawing more cards, and then you kind of get into this let's say this cycle of good stuff that's going to happen. Then you deploy a Sheldred, and then you can kind of go off.
Okay.
But yeah, simply just too much top end stuff and not enough life gain cards like the March or Soul Spike.
Oh yeah, even Shieldred too, right? Then I guess thinking about it, maybe he really did whiff there because he saw a lot of his deck.
Yeah, I, I,
Yeah.
I would say so. It was not ideal.
Mhm.
He got to change some rings and have some more looks, etc. I don't know if he saw a single Soul Spike, so that's obviously a bit below par.
Well, speaking of Soul Spike, here it is. But now it looks like he's on a mulligan to 6 here on this Necrodominance deck in our final game of the first match here. And this one doesn't look that great. He's going to go down to 5. Okay. Maybe there's an angle here. What do you think about this mulligan to 5?
Yeah, so I'm trying to see if we can do the same as last time, basically, and we go turn 2 Grief plus Necrodominance. I think 5 cards is capable of doing that. Again, via the Phyrexian Tower and the double-faced Black Source. Pretty sure that's
Okay.
just a turn 2 Necro over there, which is pretty darn awesome.
Yeah, so you need to go Malakir Rebirth. Let's just walk through this slowly. Malakir Rebirth and then Phyrexian Tower. That's 2 cards. You need Grief, a black card to pitch,
Yeah.
and then you need the Necrodominance, and that's 5 cards. So, yeah, I get that. That's disgusting.
It
What?
really is. Like, usually, traditionally, if you mulligan to 5 with your, let's say, Junt deck, that was, like, very bad news, right?
Yeah.
But this that's why this deck can both play like this mid-range 1-for-1 style, and then it just has these haymakers where you can just outdraw your opponent.
Okay, well, we understand now how disgusting this Necrodominance deck is. On the other side, looks like Arya did top deck Nadu for turn, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to go straight to the graveyard.
Grief has something to say about that. Not only does Grief take out the opponent's best card here. Oh, looks like we missed the mana here from Doomwake's side of the table.
All right, that happens sometimes. You know, that happens sometimes. Sometimes our Boreal Grazer doesn't. True. hey, we may not be here for a winning time, but we're here for a fun time. Is that how the saying goes? I don't even know. All right, Devin, I appreciate that.
Great draw there. Urborg turning Phyrexian Tower into a Black Source here. So
Jeez.
that does help. The bad thing for Doomwake is how Haywire Might works here and the timing on Necrodominance. Because if you
Mhm.
don't get to your end step, you don't get to draw any extra cards.
That is true. So Haywire Mike can actually just like right now, we're at the beginning of combat, activate, get rid of the Necrodominance,
Yeah, this
never
is
get
not
there.
quite Necro when it comes to that, where old Necropotence you can activate throughout the turn, but this only triggers on end step. So yeah, big punish here.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens here on the other side. Looks like Malevolent Rumble is the play here on Arya's turn 3. It's going
Yeah,
to put
I
a
like
couple.
that card a lot. I missed that card initially when trying to build like a good Nadu deck.
Mhm.
For the simple fact that I didn't value the I guess, the body for Court of Calling for mana enough. So I just put that card in my, okay, maybe I'll look at this for Pauper, basically. I didn't consider it for Modern.
All right, I have a rules question for you here. Court of Calling plus the Eldrazi Scion token. Does it work like Wall of Roots? Can you add mana and then also tap it for the Court of Calling?
You're talking about tapping it and sacrificing it here.
Yeah, do you get like that good 2-for-1 value off of it with Court of Calling, the Scion token?
Yeah, I would need to rely on
Twitch okay,
chat
got
here.
got you.
My best guess would be yes.
Okay.
Just because you can kind of choose the order, so just make sure you tap it first. But I can't confirm.
Okay, I think it's a mix. I read somewhere that you don't get to do it that way, but I also don't know. I only know like the way that I learned Magic is like through like living and experiencing it, and I have not played any Malevolent Rumbles. Eldrazi and we don't really mix. We're like oil and water.
Yeah, that's a good excuse here. So meanwhile, it looks like Arya is about to execute the game plan and serve Doomwake the biggest punishment there is when it comes to misclicking.
Okay, short answer is no, you can't. Getting confirmation from Jordan, our producer, who is also L1 or L2, one of those two judges, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
L2 for 12 years. All right, officially checked and marked. So it looks like I blinked, speaking of checked and marked, and now I see Nadu and Shuko in play, and this one it seems like it's going to be a wrap now, right? We don't necessarily have...
We don't necessarily win the game this turn, but we put so many resources into our hand and onto the battlefield that the mono black deck can't come back. Realistically, I would say.
Okay. I mean, I'm also down for putting Reese's into play too. I'm a big fan of peanut butter.
So here, if Doomwake can hit another land, which he did there, then no, sorry, Arya, of course. Then she can play the Nantuko out, and with the Nantuko out, 2 more equips onto Nantuko. If there's any land among those, we start getting 1/1s from the Nantuko. So yeah, pretty good situation here.
One thing I like about playing on Magic Online here is it's a lot easier for me personally to keep track of 0s, 1s, and 2s. I was watching Pro Tour coverage, and I know every time it was a Nadu combo time, you'd have to sit through it and you'd have to watch, because in case somebody fails, you get to pounce. But the counters that came out for 0, 1, and 2 was a lot. It is honestly a little bit overwhelming at times, and I just like this visual representation. Magic Online does a lot of things very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. It's my favorite way to play Magic by a wide margin. I did not play Nadu at the PT for those exact reasons, that I was simply scared I would like mess up some mechanical stuff. So yeah, I agree. This is a bit better than I think I saw a screenshot from Daniel Guldukat, and he just like messed up his permanence totally. Like there was some absurd screenshot of his permanence in a Nadu matchup. So yeah, not the best deck for coverage, but for Magic Online, just fine with me.
Yeah, it's funny because I know Daniel, and that is exactly like something that he would do. And it looks like after this Nadu combo, Devin's going to let it play itself out. Going to concede. Arya going to take the last 2 games, the post-board games here, and win the very first match. Obviously, as we expect of our Season 1 champion, through ups and downs, to take the first match here.